Welcome, everybody, to a special episode of Take Two Podcast. Joining me today, I have a director, a writer, a producer, an actor, pretty much everything you can name, Mr. Joe Towne. Joining me, I'm very excited to chat with this gentleman. This is going to be a lot of fun because there's like a lot of things we're going to talk about, all within that realm. And I might try and talk some curveball-y stuff too, because there's a little nuance with his birthday that personally I have a connection with too. He doesn't know about that yet. Yeah, tease him there. Mr. Towne, how are you, sir? Thank you for joining Take Two Podcast.
I'm doing just great, Brian. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm excited to chat.
Okay, I'll get it out of the way. Your birthday's April 24th?
Yes, sir.
All right, this is going to score me some points here. That's my wedding anniversary.
What? That's awesome.
Wait, let me try it again. That's my wedding anniversary. Woo! In case the wife listens, just in case. 6 years. We've been married 6 years, going on 7 years.
Congratulations.
Fantastic. Yeah, so I saw that. I was like, oh, I know that date. No. So very exciting. Okay, so let's start off with some acting things because you are an actor. And I enjoy acting. I started this podcast because at one time I enjoy acting as a hobby thing, and then I like talking about it. First thing is you were in Isn't It Romantic?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that was a blast.
Were you in the Whitney Houston singing scene? Hopefully singing and dancing in the background, I hope.
Gosh, that would have been such a blast. That was one of my favorite sequences. There were a couple of great dance and singing options in that movie, and I actually barely missed one. Just I was in town in New York for a different reason.
Mm-hmm.
But no, my main thing is in the subway with Rebel Wilson. She kind of accosts me asks me to hit her in her,
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Very cool. Gotcha. I love that scene. There was a time where we had a thing called like a man card and all that. Thankfully, that kind of mindset's kind of out the window now. But we all had like some songs that maybe you didn't like to admit that you love, and Want to Dance with Somebody has always been mine. So,
it's such a groovy one.
Yes.
It definitely, I get it. And it reminds me of Hugh Grant, right? Didn't he do a whole Whitney Houston dance in Love Actually and just let his freak flag fly?
Can't beat it. All right, but upcoming acting things. It's spooky season, so we have to. You just finished filming Dead Season 2, which is all about zombies.
Yeah, they're back. It was a really exciting thing. We got to shoot out in Hawaii, which felt really exciting. It's my favorite place on the planet, and getting to breathe in that fresh air and run around and being chased by high-speed zombies was a blast.
Oh, okay. So these ones are like high-speed ones, or they're like high-functioning
zombies? Yeah, they got a little of both. The fast ones have a special sort of relationship to why.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I feel over the last few years we've like evolved our zombie. Some it's just gone from the days where they crawl out of the ground in Michael Jackson's Thriller. Now they can do things. They can talk. They can open doors.
I wish that these did a dance sequence because that was incredible. I mean, at every wedding I go to, I try to recreate Thriller.
Exactly. You and I are big on the dance sequences right now, and I'm enjoying it. We're going to do a whole special, spin-off show just on dance sequences. But awesome. All right, so when that comes out, I want to chat about it. VOD, that's coming out soon, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure. I know that the other one made it onto Netflix, so awesome. I assume they're probably going to bring that one back and then release the next one.
Gotcha.
Hopefully, maybe a little theatrical experience too. We got a great cast.
Dead Season Part 1, folks. Go watch that now because it's still spooky season this week that we still have a little bit of time. Also, something you can watch is that you were in the remake of The Omen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did get possessed by the young devil, and I'm sorry, Julia Stiles' character, I did a terrible job protecting her.
That poor lady. You and I are talking briefly real quick, like slasher movies. I'm all about slashers, but all right, so being in that realm, on set when you're doing demonic type stuff, is there any type of, because you're not being chased by a guy with a knife, but now you have to go that possessed route, and now you're invoking the fear. Any thoughts in acting differently in that realm?
Well, I mean, for me, the main thing is always using imagination instead of using and drudging up sort of old things. I'm really into being psychologically healthy. Mm-hmm. And so I also feel like it's less limiting. And I've been really fortunate to have some teachers that, had to run into some of those issues themselves and pay the price over many years of drudging up things and the impact of that. So I just feel like we have unlimited options when we use our imagination. But the other part of it is, how do you cleanse yourself when you're back? Sure. Like what kind of ritual do you need to sort of remind yourself, people, right? Yes. Child, wife, not necessarily sneaking around and jumping every time you hear a sound. So
speaking of wife, your spouse is in the business. Does that help? Does that help being an actor? And then she kind of knows what you're going through and can kind of help you with what you're going through and vice versa?
Yeah, we met as actors. So I think there was a lot of helping each other out and exploring craft and getting to run things together. And we always had sort of super fun, friendly competitions that where whoever won, actually we both won. But I think
Mm.
the idea was it sort of spurned ourselves on, and it was really fun to collaborate in that space. And then as she started writing, we got to read each other's drafts of things. We've collaborated on some short films, and now it's so great to get her insight on some of the things that we don't often get to think about as actors. Like, what is it that perhaps a showrunner looks for from an actor's tape when they
Mm.
have 7 to 30 seconds to make a decision about the next step?
Yeah.
So those
Yeah.
things, I think that perspective is really useful.
That's awesome. Super helpful. Super helpful. And you guys working together, that's awesome. You yourself, like I was mentioning earlier, you've directed, you've written, you have producer things that are upcoming. I assume at some point we could find you holding a boom mic offset, maybe.
Let's go. I'm happy to help.
Right.
Being raised in the theater, one of my professors at USC, he actually had a class called experimentals. You could basically do whatever you wanted to do. So they did a stage version of Clue back in the day. We did stage versions of Reservoir Dogs. And
Oh
we
wow.
actually created a show called the Star Wars Trilogy in 30 minutes on stage in half an hour. And it was sold out at USC. We went on to do it at the Edinburgh Festival. It ended up touring, playing at like everything. We were from Comic-Con to we went to Skywalker Ranch and performed for George Lucas and his
No
company.
way.
And that opportunity was born out of everybody learning every position. You had to build the sets, you had to run sound, you had to basically hold the boom, but in the theater. And it
Yeah.
just gave such respect for what crew has to do, and that we're all in this together.
Yeah, and crew and what they do is a hot topic right now with their contracts and what have you, and some things
Yes.
happening on the set. So hopefully things people underrate what the crew do or don't know. I would say I probably would never be more nervous in my life than performing in front of George Lucas, something Star Wars related.
Oh my gosh, it was such an honor, and of course we wanted to do a great job. He brought his son. His son had a blast, and they sort of packed some different spaces for us to do it a few different times. And he was very kind. He came up and spoke to us afterwards, and we had his blessing to do the show because his directing teacher at university was the same person that was our professor, and so
Wow,
they'd known each other for quite a while, and
gotcha.
we felt really fortunate to be able to do that.
All right, you're mentioning teachers, you're mentioning learning from people. So one of my other hobbies, I coach my daughter's basketball and softball teams, and part of coaching that the philosophy that I and my sister helps me is all your mindset, your positive mindset. We've had a couple of girls who just are horrified to swing the bat, and we've tried to get them like, I'm going to get a hit. Don't get up there thinking what's the worst thing that could happen. Just walk up there, I'm going to get a hit, and that happens. Sometimes it works and they're like, coach, you're a genius. I'm like, I have my fingers crossed the whole time. But either way, they made me look like a genius because these ball players are good. They just had to adapt to their mindset, the positive way of thinking. You are involved in the performer's mindset, which you would immediately think from an actor, this is all just acting based, but also it deals with athletes and then just business execs and then everyday life, your mindset of how you approach things and go throughout your life, not only before, but during, but then also after, which I found very interesting. Can you elaborate more on the performer's mindset?
Absolutely. I think for me, it started with I grew up loving sport. I think I wanted to be a baseball player for a hot minute before I became afraid of the high inside fastball. Um, but as an artist, I always struggled with feeling confident. And I know that athletes are known traditionally for their mental toughness, their ability to be confident in their own self. And it was some early conversations with some professional coaches who had continued to be around the realm of sport, who started to inspire me to understand that artists had a lot to learn from athletes. And after having a few athletes into our space, we actually learned that athletes could learn a lot from artists. And so the intersection of art and sport has always fascinated me. And I think what I'm realizing is that we're all performers. Coming out of this pandemic, hopefully, I've realized whether you're getting on a plane for the first time in 18 months, or you're, coming out to your parents, or you're getting up to bat, we all have to deal with getting switched on for what feels like a big moment, a pressure moment. And then sometimes we have to come down from those moments. And so there's a lot of generally good advice that's thrown around, like just relax,
Yeah.
right? But how can I do that? And how can I do that when what I'm about to do might change my life? That's
Mm.
what we're interested in, is robust tools that are backed by science, that are simple and repeatable, and that we can personalize. You know, we don't want to break what isn't broken. We do want to empower people before,
Mm.
during, and after.
That's awesome. That's so cool. So anybody can sign up and get, do you do this out of a location or can we do this online? Can someone?
Yeah, so it started in person, and
Right.
we did a lot of it here in Los Angeles, and then we took it on the road. We were in Canada, all across Canada, and last year, the blessing and the curse is that we started to adapt to being able to do this over Zoom,
Mm.
and so we've gotten real good at making sure we can still connect, deliver, engage, and take breaks. Like, I think recovery is one of the primary things that athletes can teach artists about. And
Mm-hmm.
so we've found ways to build that into our programs. We just came out of doing one of our advanced weekends. It's like 16 hours over an intensive weekend, but it doesn't feel like it. It flies by
Right.
because we're having too much darn fun.
That's awesome. That's I'm big into that, the mental aspect of everything, of sport, of performing, and just your daily life of just my. All right, so inside baseball here, my daughter, I tell her every Monday, this is the best day of the week because it's the only day of the week that you can say I'm gonna rock it this week, and it annoys the living crap out of her. She hates it, and she's like, "No, Dad, it's Monday. Everybody hates Monday." And I said, "That's the point. Let's look forward going to Monday." So one day when she hears this, she'd be like, "Why did you tell people our secret?" Either way. But so I absolutely love that is an aspect that you guys are taking a hold of. Performers mindset, folks. I'll tag it on all of our things so you can get to it a little bit easier and look into it. I absolutely love it. I wanted to dive even deeper when I started looking on there. Unfortunately, you're also a podcaster, so we have to talk about podcasting too,
Let's
which is
go.
great, which is awesome.
Yeah.
The Better Podcast, which is a similar realm. You're talking about being a better you. My New Year's resolution this year was be better. Literally, that was it.
Wow.
Be better. And I just thought, I can't change everything. I'm not going to lose 40 pounds tomorrow, but I can at least today try and be a little bit better in just the one little thing that I do. Maybe I don't need to beat that red light right now. I can just slow down and just be a little bit better in my driving, et cetera, et cetera. And then I started listening to your podcast and I was like, this is exactly what I was thinking along these lines. Just trying to be better a little bit each day in your daily life. That's awesome. Where did you start? Where did you come up with this concept and how did you finally hit record on this?
Yeah. I really appreciate you sharing that, because I think for a lot of us, the beginning of the year, the tabula rasa, the clean slate, really is a time when we can start thinking ahead and dreaming about improvement. And a couple of years ago, disclosure, I always pick a word of the year. It's
Okay.
been a tradition the last maybe half a dozen years. And I put it on a coin and I put it on my wrist
Oh,
so I
wow.
could see it every day. And my word a couple of years ago was better. And the idea was, how can we be getting 1% better over time? How can we be inspired by athletes like Kobe Bryant, who sought to get better in every part of his life, whether it was
Mm,
creative or with his daughter or with coaching or with playing? And what are the mechanics of that? Because like you said, I might have this goal, but we rise and fall to the level of our habits.
mm, mm.
So I'm having all these insights from other people's podcasts. I'm devouring these books on science-backed practices. And I'm really excited to have these conversations in coffee shops and at dinner tables and in my coaching sessions. And almost inevitably, I walk out going, I wish we had recorded that. And
Mm.
so I was just tired of hearing myself say the same thing over and over again. I was encouraged by a few of my encouragers, my chief encouragement officers. And, I decided, this is the time. So my hope is that we can share a few nuggets that other people can use to ease a little bit of their suffering and maybe empower them to feel a little bit more like their habits are serving them over the long haul. And
Yeah.
so let's learn from the world's best creatives from a ton of different perspectives, from chefs to speakers to trainers for the 76ers to, upcoming showrunners, actors. We've got it all. But it's really been such a joy for me to learn in these
Mhm.
conversations. I'm hungry and I'm just so grateful to be able to have them. So
Hungry is the word. I think your most recent or if not most recent, recently is the young lady with the cooking, and she moved to Italy and
yeah,
whatnot, and just talking about food. A, made me very hungry. B, I've been to Italy on our honeymoon, and it just brought me right back there to the phenomenal food that they have. But to that point, you're mentioning anyone listening is thinking, oh, I don't know if I want a self-help podcast. You just have conversations with these folks, but it's from all walks of life. This lady is a chef. Culinary is her thing. But then, as you mentioned, performers across the board. I loved your question of if you were a country what would your country be like, telling people like welcoming. I was like, that's actually a really fun thought, a fun, thing to think. What would you, if you were a country accepting people in? I like also the way that you edit in little fun facts. I didn't really know what a truffle was, but then thanks. You let me
A
know how,
tuber.
and how
Yeah.
expensive truffles are. I didn't realize you'd get that much cash. I'm digging through my backyard now. I was like, wait a second, $1,000 a pound? Let me get out here and see if I can find some mushrooms. But that's
Oh
really
my
awesome.
gosh. If you discover some, please invite me over. I'll bring fresh pasta.
Done. Fantastic, folks. The Better Podcast. Again, I'll try and tag it on all of our stuff for you, but check it out today because it's more of just a fun, more conversation that I think is uplifting and inspiring and helpful to people, and I really enjoy it.
Thank you so much, Brian. It's such a blast to do it. And those drop-ins are super fun because I feel like I get to talk directly to whoever might be listening. And
Yeah.
I appreciate you doing that.
Rock and roll. Joe, we have to have you back on down the road, especially when your zombie movies come out, when some things come out later on that you're already working on, producing things. Before I let you go, though, we already talked sports. You have a New York background. You're from New York, so
And
Yankees, Mets.
God, we only had one rule in our house growing up: no Jets, no Nets, no Mets.
Joe,
It wasn't actually a rule, but yeah, I went to my first Yankee game with my dad. I saw Dave Winfield play, and I immediately was like, he's my favorite player. So I grew up in a household filled with Yankee fans, and it's been an up and down period of time. My love and frustration with being a fan. I
hmm
don't love when fan bases tilt from confident and playful into, being a little bit obnoxious.
sure.
And so I struggle with that on occasion. We're certainly not the only
Mm-mm.
fan base who does it. But yeah, I'm mostly interested in cultures and coaching that is uplifting and inspiring. And so on the other side, Pete Carroll was a coach at my alma mater at USC for about 10 years. And I couldn't believe what he was doing on the field and some of the things that I was reading about that he did
hmm
off the field. And so when he went up to Seattle, I just became excited to see what the experiment would do. And he's had a lot of consistent success. And I
Sure.
had the good fortune of being able to meet him
Nice.
briefly at midfield after a practice a few years back. And
Wow.
he was so present and so loving to a complete stranger. And I
Oh,
will never forget the conversation that we had. So
very
that's
cool.
really what inspires me the most about sport is the stories and the philosophy.
Beautiful. Very nice. I born and raised in Maryland, but my mom's side's from Manhattan, and we were brainwashed Yankees and Giants fans. So you're okay. We're in the same fan base. That
Okay,
Dave,
sweet.
yeah, Dave Winfield, you're aging yourself a little bit there.
Yep.
Could have fibbed.
he
Brought
he
a.
just was he was just in the stands not too long ago, sort
Oh
of
yeah,
for playoff baseball. So that was pretty exciting.
gotcha.
But it wasn't him in the Padres, it wasn't him in the Blue Jays. But
Sure. Very
I
cool.
I was a fan in the womb. What can I say?
There's no argument against it. And at this point, 40 plus years in, I'm pot committed, so we're just gonna stick with it, even if they just signed the manager to 3 years and I don't want him. But either way,
Yeah,
that's a combo for another day.
absolutely.
Joe Town, thank you so much for coming on Take Two Podcast. I desperately want to have you back on anytime you want to come chat movies or podcasting or even baseball.
I'd love it, Brian. Let's go. Let's go. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. And thanks for the invitation to talk about better.
Thank you, sir.